Here's a 4202 game. This was one of my first matches from 9.2. I actually played this before I reinstalled most of my mods, so that's why you'll see the gun recoiling. Obviously I don't usually play with that turned on, but because I hadn't copied my mods across yet, it was still a thing. Anyway, the 4202 was actually buffed this patch. It got a rate of fire increase, which was pretty nice.
Let's go.
And I've also got a couple of points I want to make about Highway as a map. Now, immediately, almost before I get out of base, RVK tells the team to camp with him. As far as the decision to push field or city goes, it has to be made at the start of the match, like right at the start, before the battle timer or the countdown to start a battle timer even runs out. The reason for this is what you see happening in the south of the map right now. We have a couple of tanks pushing ahead, and then the rest of them all lining up to camp. Now these guys are completely unsupported, because these guys can only render about this far. And even if they can render further, they're not going to have shots into the actual buildings. So if you want to get tanks into that town, you have to make the decision at the start of the match to push enough tanks in there. 2 or 3 can't hold town. No matter what support they've got behind them, they can't hold it. You need at least 4 or 5 tanks in the town, usually more. This also holds true. Sorry, replay's a bit jittery. This also holds true for the north spawn trying to come into the field. You need people to decide at the start whether they're going to do it or not. You can't just sort of wing it and make the decision later, or you end up with a big mess like this. With those tanks all spread out there, it's not good. And in fact, we end up losing a bunch of them, simply because they couldn't withdraw. Once you cross into that field, you're in the open. And if you then lose town, you're going to be shot down on from at least one side, probably 2. Anyway, back to what I'm doing, which is carelessly throwing away hit points to an E50. But you can see that the increased rate of fire in the 4202 is just really quite nice to have. I mean, it was already a big improvement over the Centurion in that regard, but now it's just quite nasty. It's not that hard anymore to get 4202 games with over 3 or 4k damage just from firing a gun a couple times. Thankfully their T30 is an awful shot, and so it really puts one into my tracks for 0 damage. For some reason we've got a Patton and a 4502A pushing across the centre of the map, while the enemy still have an unlit object and also a 215B in that area. I'm not sure what our team is doing at this point, honestly. Well, the guys up here with me were doing quite well. We were pushing hard, but the guys down south were just a mess. So 268 pushes in, I scrub my shot. I'm backing up here because I didn't realise the 704 had just been lit. I thought they might still have something covering the middle. So it's important to actually pay attention to those little markers that tell you if a tank's been spotted or not, I guess. Something I need to start doing. And here you can see the enemy have taken city quite comfortably. We've lost 3 of our tanks, 2 of them there, 1 of them in middle. But because we pushed north so aggressively, we were able to actually make the enemy team pay a lot more dearly than we did. Looking for a shot in this 183 here, because he's obviously a very big threat to my team. Unfortunately, the hill's just blocking the top of his turret, and so I'm going to have to move up further to get any angles on him. Now, what RE3 says there, that they're all going to come back and cap, or all come back and block cap, and then clean up the rest of the guys in our base. That's normally what happens, but because we were actually able to skew the balance of numbers in our favour by winning the fight up north, that's actually not going to happen. They're going to try and come back to reset cap, but it's going to actually cost them even more dearly. Now, that's the thing about Highway. If you lose one flank, you can always recover the game just by making sure that you have a better number of tanks to play with than the enemy. I mean, if they try and come back and reset 5 tanks with 3, it's not going to happen. I just decided to drive straight across the field at 50-41 there. Take a hit in the process, but not one that damages me. The enemy team weren't very good at aiming, and I managed to take 50-41 out. For those who haven't been keeping up with the news, the 4202 is going to be replaced presumably later this year with the Action X or Action 10, might be remembering, or Centurion, which is basically a Centurion hull with a turret the same shape as the 4202s, but with much more armor. Maximum thickness about 220mm, and I think the upper slope is like 150 or something. So it's going to have a very strong turret. It will have the same good depression and good agility as the Centurion. It will be bigger than the 4202 because it's on the Centurion hull, but overall it will probably play very much like a Cent 7, but with a stronger turret, I would imagine, and better better soft stats, better reload time, so on and so forth. The 215B Heavy is being replaced with a Chieftain Mark II, which I would imagine will play a lot like a slightly more armoured Conqueror. The Chieftain did not have a strong a system of armour protection as many people seem to believe, but it should be adequate for its role, certainly better than the Conquerors. And as with the 4502, its hull armour should actually prove quite effective because just it has those angles. One thing I've noticed in the 4502 quite often, not just pubbies but also myself, tend to, without thinking, aim at the hull, because it's where we used to aiming for other tanks, and it just bounces off. It's like aiming at the hull of a 50B. The 4202 and 50B are 2 tanks you want to actually aim at the turret. Anyway, for a first match in the 4202 since the patch, this was pretty nice. It's obviously handling quite a bit better with this increased rate of fire. It makes it a lot more viable in close engagements. It also makes it a lot better at supporting friendly tanks because it can lay down shots a lot faster. Armor-wise, mobility-wise, it hasn't changed as far as I'm aware. But I mean, it's a 4202. It's not very fast, but it's very agile. It accelerates well. It climbs everything. And I mean, its armor isn't very good, but if you're relying on the 4202's armor, you probably are in a bad spot. It's more of a, I want to say, sniper or support tank, because that's, that gives people a sort of fixed image of what it should be doing, but it's a tank you don't want to be the primary focus of enemy firing. So you want, say, a T-62 or something to be in front of you, but you don't want to be too far back. But when it needs to, it does have quite a decent amount of hit points. It can take a hit. It's just you don't want to be in a position where that's all you're doing. I'm slowing it down a bit on the World of Tanks videos, mostly just uploading stuff that I haven't really uploaded before, or things that have changed, stuff like that. My next video is going to be an Object 430 video showing how to effectively scout Muravanka. I already had a similar game on test, but this one's actually a bit better, and it's not on test as well. So I'll be uploading that next.